Hello everyone and welcome to Allied Fiber Television, or AFTV. I'm Hunter Newby and I'm joined today by Chen, who's the CEO of the CENX, the Carrier Ethernet Neutral Exchange. Is that correct?
Yes.
And also president of the MEF, Metropolitan Ethernet Forum. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. All right, great. Nan, thanks so much for joining me.
Sure. Glad to be here.
Thank you. So we're at ITW in Washington, DC. It's May of 2010. Just so we can date stamp this and remember where we were when we watch this video and show our grandkids someday. So Nan, you know a lot about Ethernet, for sure. You know, you're a very well-respected and revered person in the industry. Your relationship and championing Ethernet and the use and the cause of development. And I've followed that myself for many years. So thank you so much for joining us on AFTV. So anyway, I prepared a couple of questions here I wanted to run through and get your answers on. What's the relationship for you between dark fiber and backhaul in general?
Well, that's a very good question. Actually, at this stage of the game, I don't see any other way to do the backhaul. Dark fiber is the way to do the backhaul, and the bandwidth has grown so much. Not only on the internet, but also a lot of the private networks is being built, to support overall connectivity between different offices or different sites, or even data centers and cities, and that need to be fiber, period. And because the bandwidth demand is so high, I mean, there's really no other media can support that kind of bandwidth growth.
So how does wireless backhaul impact the relationship and your business specifically?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and we see a significant interest and demand in wireless backhaul. Clearly, the 3G phones and iPhones and Blackberries has really driving the requirement and to the highest bandwidth possible to each of the cell towers. And traditionally, the backhaul, wireless backhaul, has been using TDM-based services of when you bonding, 2, 3, even 7 T1s together. But that's just not mathematically possible when you're going up higher than 20 meg or so. And most the overall wireless requirement has gone from few megs now to 20 to 50 and to 100 meg, especially by the time the LTE come around. Really talking about Ethernet by definition being a backhaul.
Right.
So from that perspective, we see the significant opportunity being the interconnect point between the backhaul carriers and the wireless carriers, because we can provide a standard definition of Ethernet among multiple backhaul carriers to provide that unified or normalized interface to wireless carriers.
That's excellent.
That's a huge benefit.
That is excellent.
Yeah.
So what role does Ethernet play in the present and future?
Well, Ethernet, becoming a much more a dominant player as time goes on, and Ethernet is the future. So we certainly seen that from MEF perspective and from CENX perspective. We see Ethernet as the most dominant technology. Ethernet had been winning ever since it's invented back in 1973. Initially, it was in the enterprise space. Now it's in the carrier space. Not necessarily because it's best technology. It's because I always call it the cheapest, the cheapest good enough technology. Really helping Ethernet winning all the battles ever fought for. And I think Ethernet from present to future through the transition of using a different kind of interconnect mechanism, because today what Ethernet has been building is islands by each of the service providers. CENX came online, really helping the service provider to be able to connect them together so that you build a global networks for carrier Ethernet.
So it's a significant role.
Yeah, it is.
In the future.
Yeah, it really is. I really do see, as much as we always put down, the voice, but the overall mechanism of any given point can talk to any given point. You pick up phone, call another number, the multiple carriers in between. Carrier Ethernet need to get there.
Right.
The only thing is that I don't have 100 years to do that.
That's right. We got a lot of work ahead of us, though.
Right.
So, and finally, Do you believe that the United States of America has the physical infrastructure it needs to support all of the Ethernet-based requirements for transport and backhaul? And if not, what needs to be done?
As a pride, pride of American goes, it's really somewhat a shame that we don't have the infrastructure like some of the Asian companies, Asian countries has, and in terms of ability to connect in multiple places with the fiber. I think we really need to move forward in terms of building a new fiber infrastructure, really helping to take us to the 21st century and beyond. And I think it's one of the key things we need to do, so much like you're doing. And I think that's going to really transform really the need in terms of connectivity between different cities. And as of right now, we have about 18 to 20% buildings and can serve on fiber, which is really pretty dismal compared with some of the other countries.
Mm-hmm.
So really wanted to change that into a more fiber-based. And I know there's a lot of government initiatives, but in the end, it's private companies and telecommunication industry is going to change it for good.
Totally agreed. So one final follow-on point to that, as you've referenced countries, I think the term country being used as it relates to fiber infrastructure, communications network infrastructure. Do you think that it's fair to compare a country the size of South Korea to the country of the United States of America, geographically speaking?
Well, now clearly we have a lot bigger footprint.
Yeah.
You need to cover that. But in the same time, we are, as individuals, we just as deserving to get the high-speed connectivity.
Totally agreed. But we're dealing with a vast expanse and an economic equation that's connected to that directly.
Sure.
So Japan, South Korea, the Netherlands,
Yeah.
very good broadband penetration,
Right.
speed,
Right.
adoption.
Right.
But they could all fit into a corner of Texas.
Yeah,
Right.
I agree. I think in general speaking, there's a lofty goal, but the goal is very noble, for us
Yes.
to hopefully get to some level of penetration close to what they have in terms of fiber penetrations. But it's going to take some time.
Yeah.
But people like yourself and lead industry, hopefully we'll get there someday. But
Good.
hopefully not too long.
Yeah, right. Put ourselves back on top in a
Yeah.
leadership role in the world.
Exactly.
We're in the information age. We got to
Yeah.
invest in it.
There you go.
Nan
Well,
Chen, thank you very much for joining us today on AFTV. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you
a
for
lot.
inviting me.
Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.